Welcome back. We are now here with Owocki Reading Standard number 3. Say hello, ladies.
Hello. So here we are, still on the bottom of the ladder, right? We're going to be doing Owocki 3, and Owocki, with her writing book, with her reading book, what she has gravely assisted us in is learning our North Dakota state standards. And I can say North Dakota state standards because the North Dakota state standards are built upon the Common Core. There's very little variation. Owocki also has been able to help us with targeted instruction, and that comes from the tools that she gives us for differentiation. And targeted instruction is specifically important for our least experienced students who to get catch-up growth, and that happens only through an accelerated approach, and that's what Owocki provides for us. So we're looking at the 3 parts of her book. We're going to remain with the first 2 sections, which are about the reading comprehension standards. We're going to look at standard 3 today from the lens of instruction in literature, using literature, and then using informational text type. Standard 3 is at the bottom of the ladder. It is therefore a foundational piece, a priority, or an essential standard. We've got the clusters of the reading standards, and how they go up the ladder is a great visual for how the bottom standards are going to be your easier ones, your more basic ones, and they increase in rigor as you go up the ladder. So, okay, Jennifer and Sarah, in 2 words, when you think of standard 1, which skills would define standard 1?
Inferences
And evidence.
That one's an easy one. Okay, let's do standard 2.
central ideas,
Themes
and summary.
3 of them for that one. Standard 3 also has 3 keywords that identifies the skills: individuals, events, and ideas. Actually, this one at first I had a hard time kind of wrapping my head around it, but I think you're going to see that it is, even though it's at the bottom of the ladder, it is a little bit more complex than the other 2 standards. You know, we're not, in standard 3, we're not anymore what does the text explicitly say, what inferences do you draw from it, and what's the evidence from the text. We're not asking for summary. Here in standard 3, we're actually asking for analysis, an analysis of, in reading literature, of the character. Okay, so it starts by the focus on the character's feelings and then the character's traits. And Jen Richardson gives us some resources to help students and to help even ourselves in our planning of whole group lessons. So the goal of standard 3 is to determine how and why characters develop and interact over the course of a story. I always think of the test question: how does the character change in this story? That question is directly the question that goes with standard 3 in reading literature. We know that the character's traits, or the feelings, especially the character's traits, is the central feature of standard 3. Because the character's traits and feelings determine his or her actions and therefore the events of the plot. Okay. Jen Richardson gives us in 2009 a recommended character traits by grade level vocabulary list. And she talks about how kids need to learn this character trait vocabulary. And it can be in your read alouds, it can be in people that you read books about in the content areas, or even at character studies. But when you kind of look at her listing of, it's about 20 per grade level. I know in 5th grade here, when we kind of look through these, 5th grade teachers will often say, whoa, these are really hard. Like plucky, would you want to be plucky? Actually, Sarah and Jennifer, you kind of are plucky. Or the 5th grade teachers often say, I think we need to go back to second grade. These are so hard, but wouldn't it be great if at every grade level we had a goal of ensuring that kids learn the meanings of the character trait vocabulary? See, it's the character's traits that help the reader predict how the character might respond to the challenges the author creates for them. You're going to be, as you're analyzing how and why, asking, what are the character's traits? How do they respond to challenges? What's the character's motivation? And how does he or she influence the sequence of events? So Dorn talks about the central nature of characters, that a book's characters are at the center of multiple relationships. And this suggests that the deep comprehension is dependent on the reader's ability to infer and analyze those characters. So this is a big deal. When we think of Little Red Riding Hood, she was good, she was kind, she was innocent. Those are perfect character traits to define her in the story that we know, where she takes the muffins and the fruit, and I don't know, she's got a bottle of something there for grandma because grandma's sick. She wants to, help her get well. She cares and loves her grandma. She's even willing to go in that deep, dark woods so that she can get into grandma's house. Now, if we changed Little Red Riding Hood's character traits to evil, cruel, and conniving, we'd have a totally different plot, right? Because this Little Red Riding Hood would likely lace those muffins with something that could kill grandma, because this would be her opportunity, grandma down with the flu, to get at the family inheritance. So the character traits of your main character really determines, it's the biggest central feature that determines your plot. It determines your story. Change the setting, instead of the big bad woods, now it's New York City. How would the events of the plot? You're not going to be meeting a wolf. Maybe that character is going to be different in the subways of New York City. Again, though, there's relationship and connection between the characters in the events, characters and other characters. So in a nutshell, Standard 3 says analyze how and why individuals, events, and ideas develop and interact over the course of a text. It's basically a lot of cause-effect, right? So how does this character cause these events? How does one individual affect another individual? And how does one event affect another event? The last two are more in your reading informational text. Characters and events is more reading literature. So let's look at every grade level at the standard of how and why individuals and events develop and interact. That's the reading literature side of Standard 3. So with kindergarten, it's with prompting and support. You just identify the character, setting, and major events. Owocki gives us some suggested kindergarten mentor texts for this standard that are pretty sweet. We look at Standard 1. We're still describing character, setting, and major events, but you're adding the key ideas, and there is no prompting and support. And these would be some first grade models. Standard 2 now is looking directly at how characters respond to events and challenges. Some grade 2 examples, and again, another organizer that just bumps it up a notch. Grade level 3 is looking now at a deeper description of the character, their traits, their motivations, their feelings, and students must be able to explain how their actions contribute to the sequence of events. These are some books I did not know, but there was not one bad example on that list. Character, or grade 4, now students are describing in depth either a character, a setting, or an event in a story or play that they are able to draw on specific details from the text, like the character's thoughts, his dialogue, his words, and his actions. This is deep. And there are a number of different graphic organizers. Grade 5, now you're contrasting and comparing 2 or more characters, 2 or more settings, or 2 or more events in a story or play, And again, drawing on the specific details of the interaction between those characters. So this is looking at reading literature, analyzing how and why individuals and events develop and interact over the course of a text. Let's go now. I love Pink and Say, one of my favorites. Great connection into your social studies in 5th grade. Let's now go into reading informational text for Standard 3. And we're not just looking at how and why individuals, events, and develop and interact. We're also looking at ideas. So, it might start out in kindergarten and 1st grade. In social studies, you're looking at people in a community. And so you're making some kind of connection of the relationship. In grade 2, now you're looking at a cause and how that part influences other parts. So let's say, for example, you're looking at the consequences of human actions. And it's in relationship to industry. So the effects might be about air pollution, might be about water pollution, and it continues to go on. So the thinking, the organization of the thinking for informational text gets more involved. You also can be describing the parts and explaining why certain events occurred. So it could be looking at a sequence of events leading to the Declaration of Independence. And by the way, this says grade 2, it's grade 2 through 5. It's grade 2 through 5. And you can see that in the sophistication of the graphic organizers. So in a nutshell, reading literature, you're analyzing how and why individuals and events interact and develop. In reading informational text, you're analyzing the connection and the relationships among individuals, among events, and among ideas. So the last 2 questions, what do I teach and how do I teach? I know you're familiar. So here is Anchor 3. For literature, and it starts out, the level of rigor in kindergarten is with prompting and support, identifying just the characters, setting major events. The support is taken away in 1st grade, and you additionally have to add retelling the key details. In 2nd grade, you're describing how characters respond to major events and challenges. In 3rd grade, you're describing now the character traits, the motivations and feelings, and explaining how their actions contribute to the sequence of events. 4th grade, you're describing in depth either a character, a setting, or an event in either a story or a play, and you are citing evidence of the character's thoughts, words, and actions. And then lastly, in grade 5, compare and contrast 2 or more characters, 2 or more settings, 2 or more events, and you're looking at specifically how characters interact. If we look at this same anchor for informational text, now again in kindergarten, the level of rigor starts with prompting and support. You're going to describe the connection between 2 individuals, events, ideas, or pieces of information. The support is taken away in 1st grade. In 2nd grade, now you're describing the connection between a series of historical events, scientific ideas, or steps in a technical procedure. So that's like your instruct unit in writing. In grade 3 informational text, you're again describing the relationship between a series of events in history or scientific ideas or steps in a technical procedure. And again, you're using those signal words that signal time or sequence or cause effect. Grade 4, you're not describing, now you're explaining events, procedures, ideas, or concepts, and happened and why, based on the specific information. And then lastly, in grade 5, you're explaining the relationship or interaction between 2 or more individuals, events, ideas, and concepts from science or social studies. So if it's reading literature, if it's reading informational text, standard 3 is standard 3. It's going to be the same analysis of how and why these change over the course of the text. And of course, this learning progression is the centerpiece for your planning so that all students are able to grow in the standard and that you have the ability to maximize their growth. We're wrapping up here with, again, looking at the different, the procedure for differentiation. Are you going to plan an on grade level, a below, or an above? And so as we look at the gradual release of teaching this standard, we know that you have specific strategy focuses. Prediction is a huge one in when you're teaching standard 3 in reading literature, because again, the characters' traits, the characters' feelings are going to help the student to predict the actions and the events of the plot. Monitoring remains important, that kids are keeping track of what the text is saying. When we're reading informational text, for kids to see relationships and make connections, their background knowledge is huge. And so Owocki gives you specific, multiple activities that you can do as a teacher to support building that background knowledge. Look at that, and then monitoring again. So it all starts with, picking your literature. She gives you at every grade level literature that's going to match your the level of rigor that you're working toward in teaching through literature. Richardson also gives us that list of character traits that is going to help guide us. But we know once we've got the resources, then we look at what level of rigor we're going to develop it. We're going to organize our demonstration stage of gradual release with prompts and story maps. We're going to organize our collaborative engagement and end with independent applications. The same is true on the informational text side. It all starts with what level of rigor from the learning progression are you going to center your lesson around, and then the resources that help you to identify your prompts and story maps for the demonstration level and for the collaborative engagement level, and then lastly for independent application. It's been great to walk. We've walked 4 standards this year. That's pretty significant. There are our priority, our essential standards, and so I think we all should feel good that we are well on the way to being able to really know these standards all the way up the ladder. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Becky. You're pretty plucky yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget to fill out the Google form, and we will see you very soon at the grade level meetings.